Natural Habitat Adventures is pleased to be bringing you this webinar today, Unlocking the Mystery of Myanmar, and it's presented by Michael O'Shea. It's actually broadcasting today from Northwest Cambodia. We're delighted that he could connect with us here today. And before I turn it over to him, I would like to tell you a little bit more about him. To us, he goes by Mick O'Shea, and he is an avid outdoorsman with an internationally acclaimed adventurer, environmentalist, filmmaker, and author. Mick's love affair with the environments and cultures of Asia began at age 20 when the young Aussie first backpacked through the region. And in 2004, Mick became the first and only, so far, person to ever explore the mighty Mekong River, one of the greatest river systems on Earth, from its source in Tibet to its mouth on the South China Sea. Mick has worked professionally as a nature guide since 1999, specializing primarily in Southeast Asia. His intensive knowledge of the natural environments and wildlife species in the region has led to his regular recruitment as a consultant. He has worked with Discovery Channel, BBC, and National Geographic. And I am going to let him take over now and tell you more about this amazing new journey that we are offering to Myanmar. Welcome, Mick.
Hi there.
Good to have you here.
Thank you. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Natural Habitat's presentation on Myanmar and Thailand. First, I'd like to discuss in some detail why we feel at NatHab that Myanmar and a very special little pocket of southern Thailand are such amazing destinations to visit both naturally and culturally at this particular point in history. And then I'll move on to some detail regarding the exploratory program that we've developed to expose some of the best natural and cultural experiences these countries have to offer. As mentioned, my name is Mick O'Shea, and I'm an environmentalist, filmmaker, and author, and guide, specialising in mainland Southeast Asia. I can't seem to, the slide isn't moving. There we go. Excuse me. Specialising in mainland Southeast Asia, where I've been leading ecotourism and wildlife trips for about 16 years. My fascination with the area began when I was 20 years old and spent 6 months backpacking through the region and fell in love with the incredible natural and cultural diversity that can be found here. I kept coming back, and at age 23, I started managing an adventure ecotourism centre in Malaysia. One thing led to another, and before I knew it, I was leading world-first remote expeditions into the far-flung regions of Asia, and helping the likes of National Geographic, Discovery, the BBC and many others to make wildlife and adventure films in this area. The main focus of today's webinar is Myanmar, which is an exciting destination that's only just emerging from a long period of isolation to expose its relatively untouched natural and cultural wonders to the world. We'll also delve into a special little gem of a place in Thailand which we feel can't be missed if nature lovers are coming to the area. In a biological and geographical sense, Myanmar is a land bridge that links most of the major environmental types of Asia together. In its far north, most people don't realise that Myanmar is home to massive snow-capped Himalayan peaks, soaring nearly 20,000 metres in altitude, in an area inhabited by ethnic Tibetans. In the deep south, there's some of the world's most biodiverse rainforests that are more akin to what you would expect to find in Borneo or the Amazon, which means, of course, that there's all the rest in the middle, which is a lot to say the least. An interesting and little-known fact is that pound for pound, the rainforests of the Malay Peninsula, which includes deep southern Myanmar and Thailand, along with Borneo and Sumatra, actually contain more intense biodiversity than anywhere else on Earth. It's true that the Amazon has more overall diversity than anywhere else on Earth, but that's largely due to its unmatched size, as it covers an area 20 times larger than these particular rainforests in Southeast Asia that I'm referring to. Acre for acre, there's nowhere else that you have the opportunity to see more diversity with your own eyes in a relatively short period of time as this little corner in Southeast Asia. So from north to south, Myanmar covers from soaring Himalayas to the world's most intensely diverse tropical regions. But let's not forget from east to west. In the east, Myanmar is flanked by the mighty Mekong and Salween rivers. The Mekong Basin is arguably the second most diverse river system on Earth after the Amazon. In a couple of hours from now, I'll be watching the sunrise over the Mekong from my hotel window, and it always stirs emotions for me. In 2004, I had the privilege of exploring the entire Mekong River's mainstream from source to sea for the first time in history on a 142-day kayak expedition. The diversity I experienced was nothing less than phenomenal. Before that trip, I never really understood just how much diversity of life could be crammed into a single river valley. I guess what I'm trying to say is that Myanmar totally struck gold as far as the natural world is concerned. To be jammed between the Himalayas, Sumatra and the Mekong is like winning the biological lottery. So that begs the question, why now? If Myanmar is such a special place in terms of diversity and wildlife, then why is Natural Habitat only just starting to run exploratory trips there in 2015? The answer is political timing. I've personally been visiting and undertaking expeditions in Myanmar since 1996, and we've wanted to operate trips here for many years, but the oppression of the Burmese people under the iron grip of a corrupt and oppressive military regime left many questions about whether or not it was ethically proper to operate there on a commercial basis when we knew that an illegitimate military government would benefit. In fact, until quite recently, Myanmar's widely respected pro-democracy leader and Nobel Peace Prize laureate Aung San Suu Kyi requested international travel operators to refrain from supporting the dictatorship through tourism receipts, and many companies refrained from operating as a result. However, more recently, significant positive changes have taken place. Democratic reforms are progressing, and Aung San Suu Kyi has now invited international operators to bring tourists to Myanmar to support the transformation that is taking place. So we've taken that as our cue. The political isolation that came about via the oppressive military regime has been a blessing in disguise in some ways for adventurers and nature lovers. Myanmar is one of the few remaining countries on Earth that has yet to fully open its doors to mass tourism. Many people see nearby Bhutan as one of the most pristine destinations on Earth. Yet interestingly, on a per capita basis, Myanmar has received a similarly low number of international tourist arrivals over the last 15 years. What this means for us is that wildlife tourism is completely new to Myanmar, and we are literally pioneering many of the activities we undertake there. The people and the wildlife we encounter are not yet bored with foreign visitors. There's a curiosity and a genuine friendliness in Myanmar that is rarely found elsewhere, and it touches everyone that goes there. As mass tourism develops, that freshness will gradually subside as it has elsewhere, and it will never be quite the same again, which is why I honestly believe that now is a fantastic time to visit. So, on to our Myanmar program. Our Myanmar program begins in the capital, Yangon. Myanmar is the most devoted Buddhist nation to be found in Southeast Asia. So we dive straight into the culture by actively participating in one of the ancient traditions of Buddhism, which is almsgiving. Good karma is accumulated by those who help others on their road to enlightenment. By feeding monks, we help free up their time for meditation, as they don't have to go out into the fields and grow food like most other locals, which results in good karma for the generous. This practice is not a tourist ploy. Millions of Burmese people offer alms to the monks every day across the country, whether we're there or not. This is a living part of an ancient culture that we can experience today in Myanmar.
Mick?
Yangon also has a lot of interesting street life and local characters that we can experience along the way.
Mick?
We then catch a flight up to Hee Ho, where we have an appointment with Asia's largest land-dwelling mammals, Asian elephants. These elephants were recently rescued from logging operations. In fact, Myanmar still has the most working elephants of any nation on Earth, and they are sadly still widely used to destroy the natural diversity we've been talking about via logging operations. Sustainable ecotourism provides an alternative whereby locals can make a living by preserving the forest rather than cutting it down, and the elephants can give up the back-breaking and dangerous work of hauling logs to live a relatively cushy and stress-free life in the protection of the sanctuary. It's an important element of conservation in this area, which is why we support it. Plus, it's pretty awesome to have a close-up, hands-on encounter with Asian elephants. We help to prepare a healthy meal for these elephants, and they also enjoy getting a good scrub down in the nearby river. Asian elephants just love getting rubbed down so they can get all those little itches they can't reach scratched. We then spend the next couple of days exploring the stunningly located inner lake. This immense natural lake is set within the soaring Shan Mountains, which are effectively the foothills of the Himalayas. The lake is home to a bird sanctuary and various ethnic minority peoples, including several that still wear traditional dress. We experience the natural and cultural offerings of the lake. We also have some hands-on experience with traditional fishing and paddling techniques and learn about the fascinating sustainable hydroponic type agricultural systems that the locals have developed over the course of many centuries, so that entire communities can grow everything they need organically out on the water without the need for land or fertilizers. So, yeah, we make our way to Popa Mountain, a national park and an area of great spiritual significance to the Burmese people. That's the pool view from our very comfortable resort on the slopes of Mount Popa. The next day, we undertake an optional 3-hour trek with the aim of encountering wild langurs and/or macaques, which inhabit the volcanic slopes of Mount Popa. For the less physically inclined, there's a traditional medicinal herbal plant activity near the resort with one of the nation's leading experts. From Mount Popa, we make our way to the ancient capital of Myanmar, Bagan. Bagan has the most prolific accumulation of ancient Buddhist architecture on Earth, and it's a must-see site for anyone with an interest in the ancient world and architecture. We have an option here to take off and experience this incredible site by air, and we'll definitely take in a lot of amazing sights on foot. After a day in Bagan, we head back to Yangon for the evening, where we will visit Myanmar's oldest archaeological site at approximately 2,500 years old, Snorkel Pagoda. The structure itself is indeed impressive, but what is equally fascinating is the daily goings-on in and around the temple. Snorkel is a living temple with many thousands of local visitors daily, so it offers a great glimpse into the local culture. We then proceed to the most remote section of the trip when we fly south to the amazing Mergui Archipelago and board our private luxury chartered yacht. There's over 800 islands in this relatively pristine archipelago, and around 770 of them are deserted. The area is known as a global top 10 scuba diving destination, and many islands teem with wildlife, so it's an amazing destination both above and below the surface. It has been such a remote and inaccessible area for so long that no one knows exactly what wildlife still exists out there these days. There's certainly wild elephants, whale sharks, manta rays, and an abundance of primates and bird life. There's also rumours of extremely rare Asian rhinos and tigers. One of the amazing things with visiting such a new and relatively pristine archipelago is that every trip turns up something totally new and unexpected. This area is the polar opposite of a mass tourism site, yet it has more to offer in an environmental sense than most of the world's more famous archipelagos. With hundreds of deserted tropical islands at our doorstep, we're literally going to be living in paradise and making new wildlife discoveries every day. One of the super cool things that we do in this area is help to expand the known map of wild primate tool use in Asia. Recent research suggests that stone tool use by wild macaques is widespread throughout the archipelago, but no one knows for sure just how widespread it is. As part of our journey, we will attempt to document evidence of stone tool use on new, previously undocumented islands, effectively expanding the confirmed map of this incredible behaviour. Only 3 primate species of over 1,000 on Earth are known to use stone tools. To date, we have confirmed new areas of stone tool use on each journey into Mergui, so the odds of success appear to be quite high. We then cross the invisible line to Thailand and visit an island which is a geographical extension of Mergui called Lam Son, where we can experience wild primate stone tool use up close. On this island, scientists have been studying the behaviour for years, which means we can get close in for photography without spooking the otherwise totally wild monkeys. It's amazing to experience. It's an amazing experience to see this unique behaviour at close range from our yacht tender at a distance of only 20 metres or so. We then head into the incredible Kowloon Lake area within the Khao Sok National Park of Thailand. This absolutely stunning area abounds with wildlife, and because we can travel around the lake by boat, we're able to see a lot more wildlife than you would typically see on foot, where it's a lot noisier to progress around. We stay on a floating resort with astounding views across the lake, and are totally submerged in the tranquility of nature for 2 days. And we can usually expect to see and hear gibbons and hornbills amongst quite a wide array of other wildlife. It's an awesome way to wind up our experience. We fly home via Phuket, where there's various options for trip extensions for those who are interested. So that provides an insight into why we feel that Myanmar and the Khao Sok area of Thailand is such an amazing destination. I hope you found it interesting, and please feel free to hit me up with any questions or comments shortly. On behalf of Natural Habitat, thanks again for listening to the presentation, and I hope to meet you in this part of the world soon. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mick. And everyone was commenting about how beautiful the photographs were. Are a lot of those yours?
Yeah, a bunch are, yeah, and some are borrowed.
Okay. So we would invite our audience members to send in questions now. Anything you might like to know, Mick is here and happy to answer anything you have. So feel free to type in your questions now. You can open the question box over on the right by clicking on the orange button with the white arrow. So Mick, what's the weather like when NatHab is operating in this area?
Yeah, it's good. We operate in the dry season, so we generally have clear skies, very little chance of rain, generally speaking, and it's quite warm. Average temperatures, it varies in the different areas, but typically around 25 to 30 degrees Celsius.
Okay. And so what is the best time of year when, people are asking about best time of year in general to visit Myanmar?
Yeah, really between October and May is the best time. That's really the dry season. And within that time frame, you're generally looking at good weather and comfortable weather. Okay.
And there was a request to have you talk more about the trek to see the langurs and how hard it is. Do you stop? How hard is it? Do you stop en route? Just a little bit more about how that works.
Yeah, so we stop every 15 minutes or so for a bit of a rest. It starts on quite a mellow slope, but towards the end of the walk, up to where the langurs are usually hanging out, it gets a bit steeper. That is actually the hardest physical challenge on the trip, and so we've got alternative activities set up for anyone that doesn't feel up to that sort of walk. The whole activity takes about 3 hours, 3.5 hours, and actual walking time would probably be more like just over 2 hours, 2.5 hours of that time. So it all depends upon how people feel about doing that much walking.
Mm-hmm. Is it over uneven terrain? Do people need to be pretty fit?
Yes, like a reasonable level of fitness for that particular walk is necessary. It's probably not a walk for everybody, but I think it is achievable for most people of average. For anyone of average fitness, I think it would be fine with that.
Okay. And what is the boat like that the guests will use on the Mergui?
Yes, it's a luxury 60-foot motor catamaran. It's got 6 private ensuite bathrooms for 6 cabins, 6 double or twin cabins. There's 7 bathrooms on board. It's got a spa. There's about 8 different public areas on the boat. There's a bar. Really quite luxurious and nice.
All right. So what about the guides? Are the guides on this trip Burmese nationalists?
Yes, so there's a mix of local guides supporting me, and I also have my assistant guide, Mike, who is from the UK, and between us we all have our specialties in the different areas, so we try to work together to bring out the best that the areas have to offer.
All right, thank you. So what about packing for this trip? What do you recommend?
We always recommend to pack light. The weather, there is a bit of a range in weather. So when we're up in the lake area, it tends to get a bit cooler in the mornings. So you do want to have a sweater, some reasonably warm clothes for that location. Then when we're further south, it's really very, very tropical and warm. So, shorts and t-shirts or very like cool, long sleeve clothing is what will be required most of the time. So most of the time it's very tropical, sort of Caribbean type weather. And then there's a bit of a cool spell when we're further up north around the inland lake area.
Okay, thank you. Now, as someone is preparing to go, are there any shots, inoculations that would be required?
Yeah, I always recommend just to refer to your, doctor's advice because, different countries have different recommendations. But there's no compulsory shots. Doctors typically recommend like hepatitis B and those sorts of shots. So I would refer people to their doctors for that sort of advice.
Okay. This beautiful photo on the thank you page is the perfect photo for this next question, which is about snorkeling. What snorkeling opportunities are there?
Yeah, we will have various snorkeling opportunities. So when we're cruising around the Mergui, we're going to stop at a bunch of different islands, and some of which are very famous for snorkeling and scuba diving. And people will actually have the option at some of these locations to either go on the land and scout for wildlife tracks, or visit sites where we know there is wildlife usually to be seen. And if people feel like going for a snorkel at that time, then they can go with one of the assistant guides and snorkel, at various times throughout the day.
Okay, thank you. So what about the accommodations? Could you speak a little bit about those, please?
Yeah, the accommodations are the best available in Myanmar and generally very good. The resorts that we stay at are all very comfortable with all of the facilities that you would expect from a good quality resort. Myanmar does have quite a huge shortage of accommodation at the moment. We have to actually book a lot of these accommodations up to 2 years in advance to secure them because the tourism boom is just suddenly exploding there, and there's not enough hotels, not enough quality hotels. But fortunately, we've managed to secure the best that is available, and I can say that it's very comfortable.
Oh, great. Thank you. There's another question here about mosquitoes. Are mosquitoes a problem?
Surprisingly, not much of a problem at all. One of the most common comments I get in this part of the world is people are surprised at how few mosquitoes there are. So I would never try to say that there isn't mosquitoes, but there's usually a lot less mosquitoes than people are expecting to encounter.
Okay. We're down to just our last few questions, so if anyone has a question, please go ahead and submit it now. There's a question here, Mick, about where you can see the Popa Mountain. If you're on the Irrawaddy River, can you see it from the river?
No, you can't. It's a long way back. I mean, you wouldn't get any sort of a decent view. No.
Okay. All right. Well, it looks like we've taken care of all of the questions then. I want to thank everybody who was able to submit a question. And of course, if you have any other questions after the presentation is over, you can contact our staff and we will be happy to get those answered for you. So, Mick, let me turn it back over to you for anything else you might want to share before we go.
No, I just would like to, welcome everyone to come and visit us over in this part of the world if they feel like having a unique adventure in one of the newest, most exciting nature destinations in the world.
So with that, we'll say good day and conclude our presentation. Goodbye, everybody.